Chiefs are 2-0 after consecutive wins against the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. There is so much to get into. But before we do any of that, and I want to say this to everybody listening on 96.5 The Fan, I want everybody who is still listening on 610 AM to hear this. If you are watching this on Twitter, shout out to you. If you are watching this on Twitch, YouTube, however you are consuming this show right now, let's do a quick roll call. If your team is still undefeated, it doesn't matter if you cheer for Nebraska. It doesn't matter if you cheer for Iowa State. Doesn't matter if you cheer for K-State, Missouri. If you're a Chiefs fan, if your team is still undefeated, raise your hand. If your team has played 3 games and already lost 2 of them, raise your hand, right? I want you to be proud to raise your hand. I want you to wear it as a sense of pride. Rob, why is your hand not up? Why is your hand not up? You told me your team was going to compete for the Big 12. You told me that your team had a chance to make the college football playoff. You boys need to worry about making a bowl game. That's what you need to be worried about right now. You have 1 win this season. It's the Lindenwood who just lost to Mo State. You boys are an embarrassment. It's basketball season already. The leaves ain't even changed yet. You can still go swimming outside. Your team already has 2 losses in college football. It's embarrassing. Weren't you guys putting up signs calling it Kansas City? This is a sad, shameful way to go out. So we are going to start with the Chiefs. They are 2-0, but before we do any of that, we got to do a roll call. If your team is ranked, raise your hand. If your team is undefeated, raise your hand. If your team is an embarrassment, raise your hand. Rob, where's the pride? There we go. Touch some sky, my friend. Touch some sky. This was supposed to be y'all year. Rob, let's give him a pizza. This was your year.
Pizza time on the drive, Carrington. Dial me up right now, 913-586-7965. Caller number 6 wins a pizza from our friends over at Pizza Tassio. Pizza Tassio is Kansas City's best New York-style pizza, and they have taken over the town. They lovingly use 100% whole milk mozzarella, all organic tomato sauce with locally grown, fresh ingredients, all made by KC guys who both know and love pizza. They also have a killer selection of craft and local beers, plus unique wines. So whether you're hungry and you want a whole pie or just a slice or two, be sure to visit them now, pizzatasio.com. That's pizza, Tascio.com.
Somebody started calling him JD Pick 6. The text line is so funny. All right, let me get serious. All right, hey, I need you guys to do 3 things. Number 1, I need you listening to the drive each day at 2 o'clock on 96.5 The Fan. Number 2, I need you to tell 1 friend. I don't need you to tell 2 friends. And number 3, that's number 3. All right, let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. They win all their games, unlike Rob's favorite team. All right. 2 things I would like to start with today when talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. You know what? You don't have to apologize for anybody today. You do not have to apologize for your team winning its games. We can take a look really quickly around the National Football League. Didn't you see that this weekend that was not the case? The Baltimore Ravens, they were the 1 seed last year in the AFC. They won double-digit games. They were a favorite in their division. They have lost both of their games. One of their games was a home loss to the Las Vegas Raiders, a team that we think could be picking in the bottom 5. San Francisco was 18-4 with Brock Purdy as their starting quarterback. They go on the road. They score less than 21 points. They lose to the Minnesota Vikings 23-17. The Dallas Cowboys, they were a big favorite this weekend. Oh, did we get our jokes off about the New Orleans Saints? They go into Dallas and put a beat down on the Cowboys 44-19. The Lions are everybody's favorite. The teams that you would have said are teams 2 through 5 in the National Football League, all of those teams lost this weekend. So you know what, Chiefs fans? You know what I don't want you to apologize for under any circumstance. You never apologize for how your team won. Was this the best Chiefs game that we saw? Certainly not. Could the Chiefs clean up some mistakes? Did the Chiefs make some mistakes? I think you can argue that Cincinnati outplayed Kansas City on Sunday, and we have not had many Red Mondays where that was my stance, that the Chiefs got outplayed today. You could say that yesterday. But you know what winners never do? They never make excuses for why they won. It is much better to clean up those mistakes and things you did wrong coming in on Monday after a win, knowing that you need to clean those things up, than being what Cincinnati is, where you had to have flown home if you were a Bengals fan thinking, we left that one slip away. That was a game that we should have won. So before we move forward in any capacity in this show, I know we had our fun about KU. That's one thing. But before we start to really deep dive into this Chiefs team, I want you to hold your head up high right now that your team is 2-0 right now. And if you look at the AFC, there's not many of you. We are through 2 weeks in the AFC, and Buffalo is 2-0, Pittsburgh is 2-0, Houston is 2-0, and the Chargers are 2-0, and their 2 wins are against the Raiders and the Panthers. There's 5 teams out of the 16 that currently sit undefeated in the AFC, and you are one of those teams, and you beat 2 teams that I had projected to make the postseason, and a lot of people had projected to make the postseason, so you do not apologize at all for winning. San Francisco didn't do that this weekend. Baltimore didn't do that this weekend. Dallas didn't do that this weekend. So I wouldn't even entertain those fan bases. That's number one. Number two, I don't think this is a negative thing, and this is not an indication of how I think the season is going to end for the Chiefs, but it does need to be said. Do you guys want to know how runs end? And I'm not saying runs like this is the last year that the Chiefs are going to be good, but this season is about one thing. Can they do something that no team in the history of major college football has ever done? Can they do something that no team in the NFL have ever done, which is win 3 championships in a row? Do you want to know what ends runs usually? 2 things. Number 1, free agency, contract time. You can't pay to keep everybody. Kind of like what happened to L'Jarius Sneed, was a top corner in the National Football League. You certainly would want to keep L'Jarius Sneed if everything was equal, but in a salary cap league like the NFL, you can't pay everybody. He's got a chance to go be paid like a top 10 corner in the league. You got to let L'Jarius Sneed go get that money and go get paid, so you made a trade. That's one way how runs in. Free agency. You got to reload. You got to change your roster. You're not going to be able to keep that same continuity over time in the NFL. That's one way. The other way is injuries. We have talked this whole offseason about what you think the weakness is for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I still struggle to find what their weakness is, even after spending 2 games watching this team. I still don't know exactly what their weakness is. We'll talk about the left tackle position. There's some other things to talk about. I don't know yet if I'm willing to put those things inside the weakness category. The biggest thing that could derail this team and could allow Houston to catch up, or allow the Jets or Buffalo or whatever team you think is the biggest contender to the Kansas City Chiefs, is injuries. It's not having Hollywood Brown for the entirety of the season when he was your major offseason offensive acquisition. This wide receiver room, part of the happiness and excitement that you had about it was that you added a guy who had a 1,000-yard season. When you think about the depth and quality of that room, he made the first catch in the preseason. He might not make another catch. That's one way. And then Isaiah Pacheco, a guy who has been very key, very instrumental in this team over the last couple of seasons. He has been a workhorse back for this team. He's been a guy that you trust to give you 200 carries. He's a guy that you trust to catch the ball out of the backfield. He plays with a certain measure of toughness that you love and appreciate as a Chiefs fan. He is out. This is how runs end. At the end of the season, if the Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl, this will be the why. They were just banged up. A team that has played more football than anybody over the last 5 years, and injuries started to pile up. We are 2 weeks into the NFL season, and they have already had 2 significant injuries. We got a long way until we get to New Orleans. They still got to keep Patrick Mahomes upright. You still got to keep Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice, Chris Jones, Trent McDuffie. You still got to keep a lot of these players happy and hope that at some point this season, you either get back a guy like Hollywood Brown and he can be a boost for you in the second half of the season, that you get Isaiah Pacheco back for that stretch run and he comes back good as new. Those are the things that you got to hope for. So on one end, Chiefs fans, I want you to be happy today that your team won, because there's a lot of fan bases that can't say that today. This was a disappointing Sunday around the league. But also, I just want you to just note, how the Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl are the things that have happened over the course of the last 4 or 5 months. It is, you got to make tough decisions because you can't pay everybody, so your roster just changes, and injuries start to pile up on this team. And the injuries, I would say officially, have become a concern. If you're not going to have who could have been your number one wide receiver and your number one running back, and we are not even to the leaves changing, things could continue to go wrong in this, and injury fortune are a big reason of why some teams perform the way that they do over the course of the season. There's a lot of things to talk about from yesterday's game involving, there is a controversy right now that makes absolutely no sense to me. I'll explain. Keep it right here. It's The Drive.
The Drive with Carrington Harrison on your home for Kansas City sports. 96.5, The Fan. Brought to you by DM Injury Law. Have you or a loved one been in a car wreck? Contact DM Injury Law today and get the money you deserve. Car wreck? Remember, Mike's got this.
Did you know your skin is the largest organ of your body? Huh? That's why you should shower with Old Spice Super Hydration Body Wash instead of plain old bar soap. Love your skin by super hydrating it with vitamin B3 and glorious notes of vanilla and shea. Did you know that my super hydrated skin is the second largest organ of my body? The first is my heart. Old Spice. Men have skin too. Old Spice Super Hydration Body Wash. 24/7 renewing moisture. With daily use.
We could try to explain what it feels like to get your work done on a John Deere. The way a Z-Track mower finishes in half the time you thought it would. Or how much easier it is to move mountains of soil with the 1 Series tractor. We could even go into detail about how it feels to tow up to 4,000 pounds behind a Gator XUV. But if you really want to know what it's like to run with us, you just have to get in the seat. Learn more at